Hey, Days Legion Doom, welcome to Podcast The Storm with social awkward outcasts, crazy weirdos, and all around nerds, community, and all things pop culture. With me, as always, is my co-host, the nerdy occultist, aka the Authenticator, Dalton L. Mortimer.
Good evening, everyone. The move has been delayed a week, so I will be moving sometime next weekend, most likely. For anyone that was curious about that.
And I'm your host, last time I want to be the brain from pop culture. As I went in tonight.
I am doing mostly okay. Honestly, I'm actually somewhat grateful for the extra week because I was not really fully prepared to be moved this weekend.
Hello, Giant Turtles. Good to see you. Finally here after a long while of not being live. So, yeah. As he says, I am a live viewer. Hey, Don, asked you something real quick in Discord. By the way, I'm doing well. Doing well.
I saw you sent something, DT, but we were busy doing show prep stuff, so I will look at it after the show, most likely.
Yeah, man, I'm sorry. I've been either I've been busy writing, busy working, or busy doing podcast stuff. So I haven't really been able to do any of the reading. I probably should have. I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I still haven't even read any comics I've bought for months.
And we still have to get him. We still have to get him caught up on Dresden at some point, DT. Mwahahaha.
Those days when I was still in high school,
Mm.
had more time then.
Had more of a lot of things then because it was mostly before the world went nuts. Mostly.
Oh, the world was always nuts.
Well, the ratio of nuts to not nuts has gone sort of skewed of late.
Fair.
Considering it seems like every fucking 72 hours there's another world-changing event.
That's supposed to be on the phone until off work in 2.25 hours. So going to be a little amount of responses if I can help myself. No, you're good. You're good, man. That's so long as we know you're watching. That's fine with me.
Mm.
Just waiting on the article to load.
Yep.
Give me a second. God damn it.
This is a fairly full week. It feels like it's the first normal week we've had in a while.
And you jinxed us, you motherfucker. Knocking on wood or anything?
Yes, I did. Did you not hear it?
No, you have a shitty mic on that phone.
True. I'm surprised how good it works with it just being a phone, honestly.
Well, to be fair, I think it only it's a phone. It's supposed to catch your voice. It's not supposed to really catch anything else. So no, I didn't hear.
I've always been mostly pleased with how good the the mic on Google Pixels tend to be.
Okay. It's still loading.
Mm.
Reminder, I have a shit computer.
Yes.
Basically was asking if you wanted me to send you some funny comics I found. There's some Fox News jokes I'm warning you in case you get triggered by that sort of thing or something. Dawn must cast the anti-jinx ward. Yeah. Okay, Christ, why is it always... Hold on. Fucking thing. Alright, hold on. Yeah, I'm using the archives and fucking... I don't know, these things are always weird when I'm streaming.
Mm.
Alright, there we go. Finally. Jesus. Okay. So this originally... Fuck! Okay. It's originally from the Independent.com. Controversial comic strip creator who begged Trump to save his life dies. This is written by Inga Parkle. Published Tuesday, January 13th, 2026.
Mm. This becomes a reoccurring theme in this particular show because everyone lost their fucking mind with Scott Adams passing. Moving
I'll
forward.
be honest. So, full context, I'm aware of Dilbert, but I never got into it. I know it's a comic. I sort of read it when my family would still get newspapers way back when.
I didn't pay much attention to it until I saw the reaction that his death was getting, and then I looked into it, and I can now see why so many people are such fans of him, and why the idiots in the mainstream media hate his fucking guts. Because Dilbert is basically, having recently discovered this because of the unfortunate passing, is basically the fuck the corporation anti-establishment urge if it were a comic. And especially in today's day and age, I can see how that went wrong, especially given some Scott Adams political opinions, which are fairly normal as far as I'm concerned, but of course, norms are just a social construct. I'm not even pro-norm, but you know the usual social justice brain rot. Anyway, moving on.
Mm-hmm. All right. Scott Adams, the creator of the satirical comic strip Dilbert, has died at the age of 68. His death was confirmed by his first ex-wife, Shelley Adams, who said a day earlier that he only had days to live and was in hospice care. Adams had been battling a aggressive form of prostate cancer that spread to his bones and was recently paralyzed from the waist down due to a spinal tumor. That's rough.
That's a doozy.
Yeah. Staunch Donald Trump supporter and right-wing activist, he asked the President of the United States to help save his life. Trump replied on it. The popular Dilbert comic strip, which satirized corporate office culture, ran from 1989 until 2023. Its syndication was widely dropped by U.S. newspapers in 2023 after Adams made racist remarks on his YouTube show.
He didn't, for the record. This is the usual anything that acknowledges a difference between races is racist, no matter how like value neutral it is.
The fuck? Hold on.
The mainstream media are a bunch of cunts, as per usual. All he said was Black Lives Matter are a bunch of violent brats, and that there's a certain percentage of the inner city black community that genuinely don't think it's okay to be white,
Okay,
which are both true statements as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, the weird one the first one was Well, that was like the short version of it. The actual independent article is a little longer.
Yeah. Why would you archive the short version? Archive.com or whatever the
Oh,
fuck.
that's the link you gave me. Or well,
Okay.
actually no, I had to look it up, but that's weird. I said
Yeah, that might be my bad. Sorry.
no,
I assumed it would auto link to the longer version and that you would archive that, or that it would have already been archived, but that's my bad.
no, I don't think so. All right, hold on. I got the other one up and running. Like me.
Okay, so let's just try to pick up where we left off.
Well, that was all the bullet points. We actually got into the actual fucking article.
Mm.
All right. Da, 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 okay. Death comes after Shelley had told TMZ that Adams had been receiving end-of-life care at a home for the past week. She said that he begun to experience some confusion, but still managed to record what he directly acknowledged might be one of his final YouTube videos.
As a fellow YouTuber, I respect the hustle. I hope we all get so lucky to have our final official statements be recorded for posterity and shit.
Randall, the left, the intersectionalist at least, supports every destructive force, the dictators, the predators, the terrorists, criminals, abusers, etc. White ringers, they either twist it around with radical Islam or do like they do with the Klan and skinheads, or the turn down and shifting attention from them to moderates you labeled as them.
Yeah, as far as I am aware, Scott Adams of Dilbert fame is one of those sensible center people who can acknowledge that BLM is a shitty organization, and that the percentage of inner city black people who genuinely don't appear to think it's okay to be white are the problem, without going full race realism derp. He seemed like a he seemed like a fairly sensible center right to me, bearing in mind that I am coming from the like Bernie Sanders circa 2016 like center left populist libertarian wing of the left. So if I'm calling someone sensible center right, you can pretty much take that to the bank, assuming that I'm not blinded by some bias that I'm not aware of. But unlike the mainstream media, I do my best to try and remain aware of other people's frameworks, and I don't automatically invalidate them if I can help it.
Going on?
Moving on. Yeah.
Oh, they say they promote things like black culture and are against colonialism, then change definitions because that issue was just one of their many skin suits, and it seems like not only is the pendulum swinging with the return of the Tradcons and the death spiral of them feeding off each other.
I really hope we can avoid a Tradcon Satanic Panic Red Scare resurgence. I really do. Especially because I would like to find and then marry a male significant other at some point in the not too distant future, and Tradcon resurgence would not react well to a crippled occultist who's also gay. Like, for the record, I have many right-wing friends, and almost all of them are okay with all of the aforesaid things. I'm not worried about the right in general. I'm worried about the Gavin McGinnis, Matt Walsh, Lotus Eater style of Tradcon bullshit revival. And even then, most of the time, I can at least see where most of the Lotus Eaters are coming from. The only one I majorly have a problem with is Harry, because every time he opens his mouth, he is the most, like, aggressively quasi-authoritarian Tradcon revivalist Zoomer I've ever heard. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah, I'll read that in a second, Trenchel. At the start of the YouTube video she posted, Shelley said, "Hi everyone, unfortunately, this isn't good news. Of course, he waited until just before the show started, but he's not here with us anymore." Choking back tears, she went on to read Adam's final message. "If you're reading this, things not go well for me. I have a few things to say before I go. My body failed before my brain. I am of sound mind as I write this January 1st, 2026. If you wonder about any of my choices for my estate or anything else, please know I am free of any coercion or inappropriate influence of any sort. I promise."
Good for him. And he got his final words out on New Year's. Also good for him.
Alright. Next, many of my Christian friends have asked me to find Jesus before I go. I'm not a believer, but I have to admit the risk-reward calculation for doing so looks so attractive to me, so here I go. I accept Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior, and look forward to spending eternity with Him. Part of me not being a believer should be quickly resolved if I wake up in heaven. I won't need any more convincing than that. I hope I'm still qualified for entry.
I mean, the slightly more deep into the metaphysical weeds part of me would have probably mentioned to him, if, assuming I knew him and he would listen, that there are other spiritual options, but good for him. The problem with Pascal's wager has always been, how can you weigh one metaphysical, like, from the atheist, rationalist, enlightenment point of view, what makes Christianity more preferable to European polytheism or Hinduism or any of the other metaphysical beliefs that a enlightened rationalist and sort of person, the deist to atheist tier people wouldn't find equally as incredulous. I'm not saying I would try to deconvert him. I'm just saying, if I were going to make a deathbed conversion, I would want to be aware of my options and make the decision accordingly. But a lot of people fall victim to it's either the Abrahamic religions or it's nothing thing, and I don't. It's just it annoys my epistemological and metaphysical autism. Is I guess what I'm saying there.
Mm.
Like, there are other options that you could choose. But anyway, moving on.
Maybe also unironically saying to beat. Hold on. Okay, by the way, on one of these streams, you guys should see "Put Them in a Box" by Leaflet if you want to know the references she breaks down in a 50-minute video. I don't agree 100% with it, but it's a YouTube music video full of memes and references, so also probably reading too far into it.
Is that the one you sent me? The one with the rather scary blue guy with the long hair? Like, blue tinted? thing.
All right. Born in 1957 in Windham, New York, Adams was famous for creating the popular comic strip Dilbert, known for its thrill take on American corporate office culture. Dilbert was first published in 1989 and ran until 2023 when it was dropped from syndication by hundreds of U.S. newspapers after Adams went on a racist rant on his YouTube show.
He didn't. All he said was that BLM activists are violent twats a lot of the time, and that he cited a poll where the question, is it okay to be white, was asked, and like 20% of the black people that were asked in this particular survey said no. And he was rather nonplussed by the idea that, at least as per that particular survey, there's apparently 20% of inner city black people who think that it is genuinely not okay to be white, and that white people would probably be justified in being a little bit uncomfortable with sharing a country with such people. And by the way, I agree with him on the basis that in a multi-ethnic society like the US, you can't really make this society function if there are a significant plurality of any given demographic who don't think it's okay to associate with the other ones. And especially not if they consider being of another ethnicity to be immoral, by definition. I don't think that's racist to say. And I have fucking dated black people. For like a year, my ex happened to be black, and I dated him for a year. This was during COVID, so we never got to meet up or anything, and there were other compatibility issues and whatnot the fuck, but, like, again, the 2016 Bernie Sanders era center lefty who dated black people and has no problem with the prospect of ever dating them again does not find what he actually said to be all that racist. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah. Then revived his work under a subscription-based model and retitled it Dilbert Reborn. Adams first announced his prostate cancer diagnosis last May, shortly after news broke that former President Joe Biden had similarly been diagnosed with an aggressive form of the same disease. But I've had it longer than Biden's had it, longer than he's admitted having it. He said at the time, so my life expectancy is maybe this summer. I expect to be checking out from this domain sometime this summer. Staunch Donald Trump supporter and right-wing activist, Adams previously made a public plea to the president for helping in assessing experimental cancer treatment. My healthcare provider, Kaiser of Northern California, has approved my application to receive a newly FDA-approved drug called Pluvicto, but they have dropped the ball in scheduling the brief IV to administer it, and I can't seem to fix that. I'm declining fast. I will ask President Trump if he can get Kaiser of Northern California to respond and schedule it for Monday, the comics artist wrote on X in November. Within hours of his post, Trump shared a screenshot of the message on Trump Truth Social, replying on it. Trump has shared a tribute to Adams following news of his death, calling him a great influencer.
Now, see, this is genuinely kind of heartwarming, because Scott Adams is, famous in the circles he's famous in, but he's not really a big deal. So the fact that Trump took time and energy out of his day to not only register that Scott Adams is the Dilbert guy, but also be a large enough fan of his to know that Scott Adams was a supporter of Trump, and that he was moved enough by the plight thereof to try to help him. And by all accounts, he did actually reach out and financially support him in this regard. It's just that unfortunately, once you're stage 3 or above on cancer, you can't, it's one of those memento mori things. You just can't beat the Reaper. Death comes for us all eventually, I suppose. Because I saw a lot of people using this as an excuse to decry Trump, because they will use literally anything as an excuse to go Orange Man bad. But by all accounts, he actually did financially reach out and assist in this regard. So it's not a Trump burn. It's just that Trump, like all mortal men, cannot beat the Reaper. Moving on.
He was a fantastic guy who liked and respected me when it wasn't fashionable to do so. Trump continued on Truth Social. He bravely fought a long battle against terrible disease. My condolences go out to his family and all of his many friends and listeners.
I mean, it is a politician's statement, mind you, but it demonstrates at least a little bit more thought got put into it than the average politician, corporate speak statement. Because it, again, shows that Trump has at least some degree of familiarity with who the person actually was, instead of a normal politician would have just said some generic line and then gone, my condolences. Trump actually seems to have liked the guy enough to have kept apprised on his condition and his affiliations and so on, which is not something that you often get from these sorts of corporate speak statements. So there is that. Moving on.
Just getting the other thing. Okay, there we go. All right, just to see if I missed anything. I didn't. Okay. Also, that would have been Asmongold. Reply to when I sent it to see if that was the one. Was that like 904? So I can't remember the context of that specifically.
I think that's probably talking about the song he mentioned earlier.
Right. Okay. Alright, so this is from azcentral.com originally. Scott Adams controversy overshadows Dilbert legacy. It's an opinion piece written by Bill Goody Kunst. Published January 13th, 2026. I'm sorry. I'm tired. I'm a little tired.
Yep.
Okay. Scott Adams, who created the comic strip Dilbert, died of cancer on Tuesday, January 13th. The fact that he created Dilbert is by itself worthy of note. The strip perfectly captured the inness of the modern workplace, skewering the nonsensical decisions made by management that everyone who has ever had a boss recognizes, including bosses. Everyone works for someone. It's hard to overstate how beloved the comic was by cubicle-dwelling workers. Felt like being seen, but Adam 68 lost a big chunk of his business and his reputation after making racist remarks and embracing right-wing politics and conspiracy theories.
He didn't.
It makes his legacy one of the more complicated in recent memory.
Not if you don't have political brain rots, because the things he said were not racist or controversial. He was reacting to a poll wherein the question, is it okay to be white, was asked, and 20% of black respondents particularly said, no, it is not. After which, Scott suggested that it is perfectly legitimate for white people to feel uncomfortable with the idea that 20% of at least the black people who were asked in this particular survey unironically think it is immoral to be white. And by the way, that would be an untenable position no matter what you changed those sets to. If it was a set of white people, 20% of whom were saying it's not okay to be black, I would still be decrying it. Because if you live in a multi-ethnic society like the US, everybody has to at least tentatively be on board with the idea that we can all, be, if not moral equals, at least admissible to the discussion. And a large subset of people saying it is not okay to be a particular race or demographic is a problem no matter which demographic you change it to. Moving on.
Adam's racist comments were stunning and damaging. That's a part of this art. I can't remember what it's called. The section of this article, I guess.
Mm.
In 2023, on a YouTube live stream, Adams discussed a conservative poll that found 53% of Black Americans agreed with the statement, "It's okay to be white," a phrase the Anti-Defamation League has deemed hate speech for its use by white supremacists. Adams called black people a hate group and said, "I don't want to have anything to do with them, and I would say, based on the current way things are going, best advice I give to white people is to get the hell away from the black people."
Well, considering that only 53% of them think it's okay to be white, that's kind of a large percentage of the black people that were at least asked in this particular poll. Can you imagine the shitstorm that would be raised if a similar poll came out from a left-wing pollster where only 53% of white people said it was okay to be black? And by the way, it's not just white supremacists who say that. It's not even white supremacists who say that, because white supremacists would genuinely say that it is better to be white than it is to be anything else. Which I do not now, nor have I ever believed, and you can fuck right off if you think I ever have thought that. I do think that it is just as morally legitimate to be white as it is to be black or any other race at all, because race and demographics should not be the metric by which we arbitrate morality. Inherent characteristics have very little, if anything, to do with morality, unless you have a serious inherited mental condition, or unless you feel unnatural attractions to minors, at which point that only becomes moral in the sense that you should make the morally conscious decision to not indulge that orientation under any circumstances whatsoever in the real world. And you should self-medicate using things like manga and fiction and anime and shit. In my opinion, anyway, that is the healthy way of going about that, if you happen to be saddled with that particular millstone around your neck. But for the most part, for the most part, demographics have, especially inherent demographics, have jack shit, nothing whatever to do with morality. Sorry, go ahead.
Alright. Adam's racist comments were stunning and damaging. Did I read that? No, I did read that. Okay. Sorry. Just get the expletive away. Wherever you have to go, just get away, because there's no fixing this. This can't be fixed. You just have to escape. So that's what I did. I went to a neighborhood where, a very low black population. Almost immediately, papers dropped the strip, including the U.S. Today Network, Washington Post, Los Angeles Times, and the Boston Globe. Andrews McNeil Universal, the distributor of the comic, dropped him. Penguin Random House announced that he wouldn't publish his next book. Adams relaunched the strip as Dilbert Reborn, available by subscription, but by then he was making more news for the things he said than the things he drew. November 2025, Adams posted on X that his healthcare provider dropped the ball and he was asking Donald Trump's help in scheduling the administration of a cancer drug. Trump I responded on it on Truth Social. Adam Slater said the drug treatment was postponed.
Okay, with regards to the things he said, he was obviously being flippant and exaggeratory, just like he is in his Dilbert comics, because he's a guy with a rather dry, satirical, acerbic wit. And I'm sorry, but if only 53% of a given demographic confirm that it is okay to be another demographic, regardless of said demographic, and 20%, more than 20% of the same demographic say actively it is not okay to be of a particular demographic, that is startling enough that I might occasionally be inclined toward exaggeration and flippancy for the sake of humor. I do not think that was a racist thing for him to say. I frankly think that anyone who answered that poll should be fucking in. Anyone who falls within that 47% of people who didn't answer that it was okay to be white, and definitely the 23 or whatever the fuck it was % of people in the black community who said it was actively not okay to be white, should be fucking investigated. I'm not a fan of watch lists and things, but if you are actively saying you cannot agree with the statement, it is okay to be white in fucking America, and you actively think it is not okay to be white in fucking America, then you are a dangerous person and you should definitely be at least on a list somewhere. Moving on.
Ah!
Your legs fall asleep again?
Nope, my back.
Ah.
I really gotta stop being hunched over when we're doing this. So I probably
Yeah, that would probably help. When and if we meet up, I'm going to fucking give you a massage because you desperately fucking need one. You've had back problems and shit for as long as I've known you, and it's starting to genuinely worry me.
I've had them since I was a kid. Like, it's nothing new.
Uh-huh. And that does nothing but make me more worried and more inclined to want to help my friend, god damn you.
Yeah, you're worrying too much.
He said in his mid-20s, when there should be no such problems with his body whatsoever. Considering that I want you to be around for as long as you can be, it is somewhat worrying that in your mid-20s you're already having the back problems usually only associated with people 50 plus. I have the excuse of having multiple disabilities. You don't have any such excuse.
That's fair, Giant Turtle. I fully agree with you on that one.
I am of two minds on that because I have seen people with those sorts of feelings self-medicate via manga and things like that, and to me that is the most moral thing you can do under those circumstances.
Okay, I don't want to get into this like full-on discussion because we've done this before, and
we have it was a whole special we did, and for some reason somebody in the chat, was it Edwin that lost his fucking shit over that, or was it somebody else?
I don't know. I don't remember.
No, I think it might have been Ed Brewer that lost his fucking shit because of that episode. But either way, one of our viewers lost their fucking shit in that episode, and it made me genuinely wonder what the fuck is going on in his head. Anyway, moving on.
Trump, whom Adams endorsed, praised him on Truth Social. What is Truth Social? I've never heard of that until just now.
It's the sort of right-wing Twitter replacement that Trump founded after getting booted from Twitter under the Jack Dorsey regime. It's basically for MAGA what Blue Sky is to the Democrats, kind of.
Okay. Trump mourned Adam's death and
I don't understand what functionally the difference in that sentence is between fetish and orientation in this context.
stop.
Anyway, moving on.
You
We
can
will
hash
we will discuss it later on Discord or something. DT, sorry.
every fucking time. Okay. Trump mourned Adams' death in a Truth Social post, characteristically making it about himself as he did. Sadly, the great influencer Scott Adams has passed, he says in the post. He was a fantastic guy who liked and respected me when it wasn't fashionable to do so. Trump's not wrong about that. Adams endorsed Trump in 2016 and discussed how his lean into right-wing politics cost him socially. His later racist comments would cost him more financially. As you might expect, Adams' death was immediate fuel for social media fire. Some celebrated his death in light of his racist comments and his embrace of conspiracies. Others defended him and attacked those who dared to correctly point out the controversies that surrounded his career and life.
I don't think it's particularly egotistical of Trump to note that he was nice to him when other people were not. That's probably the most neutral way he could have phrased that. And he did so to explain why Scott Adams' death mattered to him, which is more than most, like, politically corporatized fucking HR statements are made under the context of. So, like, I don't see egotism there. I see that as him acknowledging, hey, this guy was nice to me at a time where it cost him to be nice to me, and I'm going to give him props for that, especially posthumously. That's not egotism. That's just, like, humanity plus acknowledgement of reality, frankly.
Okay, complicated legacy. Adams said some truly loathsome things. He questioned the death toll of the Holocaust. He said women are treated differently by society for exactly the same reason that children and the mentally handicapped are treated differently. It's just easier this way for everyone. He opposed the COVID-19 vaccine. He also entertained millions of people with Dilbert. It's the age-old conundrum of separating the art from the artist, and that argument has spilled over into political life as well.
And you don't even need to do it if you don't have political brain rot, because believe it or not, the vast majority of people do not define their morality by their politics or their politics by their morality. Most people just want to live and let fucking live. And it's a good thing that they want to do that. Fuck this everything must be viewed through a political and moral lens shit. I think even morality should be limited as regards the public sphere, as I have been consistent on for the most part all through my YouTube career. But definitely when that morality crosses over into the realm of politics, it should not be the be-all and end-all of your moral framework. And the people whose politics are the be-all and end-all of their moral framework, or even the central axiom of their moral framework, can go fuck themselves, frankly. Moving on.
Alright, it's reminiscent of Charlie Kirk's murder, for instance. No one should celebrate anyone's death, but for the media not to include every aspect of a famous person's life is not only an inaccurate rendering, but irresponsible too.
That's true. Okay, the sensible world in which I think we would all love to live is if the media could just shut the fuck up. But if the media has decided that this person is important enough they can't shut the fuck up, then being somewhat accurate in your portrayal of the person and not warping their life or death to your political and moral ends is, I would think, the bare minimum of objectivity. Especially if the person is controversial and therefore has multiple perspectives through which you can view them through. But the problem with the media is it's never there are multiple perspectives or multiple frameworks through which you can view this person through. It is we have objectively determined what morality is, and therefore if you fall afoul of our morality, then you are the devil because we say so. It's that bullshit. And no, I'm not okay with it when it happens on the right either. It's just a lot less prevalent and a lot less condoned on the right. For the most part. The Matt Walshes and Gavin McInneses and so forth notwithstanding. And those people can go fuck themselves as and when they do this shit too.
I'll try to process some things. Leftists, again, you know the specific group, will say things like either their character supports their politics, or that they are evil and must be destroyed, or changed, or made the villain. So if they will try to separate Dilbert from him and claim Dilbert, like all art, supports them.
Well, it's because they know that Dilbert is too good for them to slander, because so many people do genuinely love it. And again, Dilbert was not really a IP that I was super familiar with until I heard about his death and went looking for Dilbert. What I have found of Dilbert, especially given the show that used to be on for like a season in like 99 to 2001 or some shit like that, from what I've seen of that and from what I've seen of like reposts of the actual comic, it's very fucking funny, especially in the Gen X anti-corporate selling out and anti-establishment and anti like giving into the system mold. Which seems to be the very mold that Scott Adams sort of thrives in. And while I am a late stage millennial or early Zoomer, depending on exactly how you split the generations, that attitude is consistent to some degree through Gen X, Millennial, Zoomers, and definitely gone full like fucking Greek fire napalm in the Gen Alpha generation, and woe betide the establishment when Gen Alpha finally comes of voting and like central demographic to Hollywood age, because oh boy, if they thought the millennials and Zoomers were bad, they ain't seen nothing yet. And by the way, I'm saying that in a positive way because I genuinely think Gen Alpha may essentially be what Gen X should have been if the boomers hadn't triangulated and did everything they could to rob Gen X of their coming of age and hold on to the levers of power for another 30 fucking years beyond the point they should have. But yeah, my general support for Gen Alpha being based, and presumably also Gen Beta, although it's still too early to tell for them because they're still in like single digit age years. Aside, that fuck the establishment, fuck the corporation, fuck the institution impulse that was the like central battle cry of Gen X and then got carried through to some degree in Millennials, Zoomers, and Gen Alpha, seems to have been the context in which Scott Adams did things, and I will never not be supportive of that particular paradigm. Moving on.
Adam seemed to know this after the 2023 racist statements that cost him his syndication and forever altered his legacy. He said, "Most of my income will be gone by next week. My reputation for the rest of my life is destroyed. Can't come back from this, am I right?" He was. You need only to look at the headlines and social media after his death for proof.
You do know that he was being flippant and sardonic when he said that. He was basically saying, you can do your best to destroy me and I will still find a way to survive, and he did. So the joke fucked with your head and then did not call the next morning, my friend. If you genuinely think he was serious when he said that, or at least that he wasn't that he wasn't serious in a way that led to him being more flippant and defiant in the face of it, then you did not get the joke. Moving on.
It's loading, so give it a second.
Yep.
Okay.
But back to the last thing DT said. Yes, DT. I think it's genuinely a case of what we can't demonize, we appropriate, and what we can't appropriate, we demonize. Vicious cycle with those particular social justice neo-Hegelian brats. I guess there's a middle stage where if we can neither demonize nor appropriate, then we institutionally capture and co-opt. I guess that's the third option for the social justice brats.
This is from BBC.com. Controversial Dilbert cartoonist Scott Adams dies, age 68. This is written 4 days ago, as it says, and published, written by Paul Glynn. Scott Adams, the U.S. cartoonist, who wrote and illustrated the comic strip Dilbert, has died of cancer at the age of 68. His ex-wife, Shelley Miles, announced his death on Tuesday during a live stream of his podcast, Real Coffee with Scott Adams. The satirical cartoon strip about a competent but frustrated engineer in his dysfunctional workplace environment was first published in 1989 and went on to feature in more than 2,000 newspapers in 65 countries.
It also spawned a short-lived adult sitcom in the late 90s and early 2000s, which I also just recently found out about, and now I'm seeking to get a DVD copy of, because, again, having just only now gotten into Dilbert as a result of the news, I really like it, and I'm wondering how I went so many. Like, I knew Dilbert was a thing because it was always in the newspaper and shit, but I never really read it. I was always a Garfield and Peanuts kid when I bothered to read newspaper cartoons or newspaper comics, and shortly after I grew out of the age of being a Garfield and Peanuts fan, even though I still am both of those things, the newspaper stopped really needing to be a thing, because who genuinely gets their news from an actual newspaper anymore?
Fair enough. Moving on, or?
Yep, moving on.
Okay, the character also later appeared in books, an animated TV series, and video game. But in 2023, his comic strip was canceled by newspapers, including the Washington Post, after Adams was accused of making racist remarks about black people.
Thank you for at least adding the accused there. The other two articles have just proceeded under the assumption that it actually was racist, and I had to explain that it kind of wasn't. I can understand why it was controversial for him to say, but I don't think it's accurate to have called his statement racist in that regard. Especially not in light of his, flippant, sarcastic, sardonic, comedic attitude that he's known for because he's the fucking writer of Dilbert, for God's sake. Moving on.
That's interesting. Gen Alpha doesn't seem more right or left, overall just more extreme.
Which is good in the sense that the Overton window is God, the normative institution cannot be questioned attitude is, I think, a large part of the problem. So even then, I am in favor of Gen Alpha doing to the Boomers what Gen X tried to do to the Boomers and failed because the Boomers were just young and with it enough to forestall the Gen Xers and hold on to power for an extra 30 years. And now the piper must be paid, and Gen Alpha is mad as hell and very shortly will not take it anymore. And I, as a philosophically and ideologically consistent millennial who has no more love for neo-Hegelian intersectional social justice than I do for satanic panic or Red Scare era TradCon family values bullshit, will applaud them when they firebomb the institutions to death so that new and better institutions can be reformed from the ashes, etc. Moving on.
While not almost religious devotion to ideology or flat-out religion, they are just cynical and nihilistic. Though I'm pretty sure it's the radical evolutionists who it isn't hard to convince them everyone not in their tribe must face the wall.
At the moment, the institutions are far too high on their own normative institutional bullshit and far too dilapidated and bureaucratic that need a wrecking ball to the fucking face. Because otherwise, Devism will shortly turn into fascism, unironically, and that is a bigger problem, I think, than dealing with the radicals. Because radicals who genuinely believe their bullshit might be able to create a new paradigm. Opportunists who just go whichever way the influencer money is pointing, they can be bought out, so I'm less worried about them. And the center must hold that Devian institutionalists are just the worst of all possible worlds and can get fucked, along with the boomers that are, frankly, the dead center of the heart of that problem. It is unironically funny to me just how much of a spiritual boomer Dev is and has become even more radicalized as time has gone by. So yeah, no, I'm okay with extremist solutions as long as they are mostly non-violent extremist solutions, because otherwise normative institutional Devism will slowly but surely morph into unironic fascism, and no fucking thank you. Moving on.
Adams called Black Americans a hate group and suggested white Americans get the hell away from Black people in response to a conservative organization's poll reporting to show that many African Americans do not think it is okay to be white. He later defended his comments and said that he had been using hyperbole to make a point, adding that he disavowed racists and that media's reports had ignored the context of his comments.
Yeah, he was being flippant, comedic, and ironic, just like he always is with every issue, if you've seen enough of Dilbert to know his comedic style. And by the way, he's right in the sense that, at least as regards the 43 or some odd percent that couldn't agree with the statement, it's okay to be white, and definitely the 23 or some percent that unironically said it is not morally permissible to be white, are the sorts of people you should get away from. That's not all black people. The simplification there was the hyperbole that he was just talking about. But definitely the portion of the black community that thinks it's not okay to be white and can't even think it's morally permissible or morally neutral to be white really honestly and truly need to go fuck themselves. They are the problem. Just like any white people who think it's not okay to be black, or any demographic who thinks it's not okay to be any other demographic in the fucking Enlightenment era social contract civilization that America is. In places like England and large swaths of Europe where there is actually an ethnic component to the nature of the civilization, that's a slightly different story. But definitely American black people who are in America should not just be allowed to unironically say it is not morally okay to be white. Or even, frankly, to not almost universally come to the conclusion that it's okay to be white is a sane thing to say. Moving on.
U.S. President Donald Trump paid tribute to Adams on Truth Social following news of his death. Sadly, the great influencer Scott Adams has passed away. He was a fantastic guy who liked and respected me when it wasn't fashionable to do so. He bravely fought a long battle against a terrible disease, Trump wrote. Tearful Shelley told listeners at the start of Adams' latest podcast on Tuesday, he's not with us anymore. She didn't write out a posthumous message from Adams. I had an amazing life. I gave it everything I had. If I got any benefits from my work, I'm asking that you pay it forward as best as you can. That's the legacy I want. Be useful, and please know I loved you all to the very end.
Both of those statements are perfectly sane, reasonable, and humane things to say. And the fact that this guy, of all the people in the world, is controversial in his death is, frankly, indicative of part of the problem. Given that people like Hassan Piker will get academic papers unironically written about them, but Scott Adams dies and like 3/4 of the media go, yeah, what he was a something right winger, therefore fuck him. Yeah, no, that's a problem. And that's precisely why this whole institutional elitist bullshit needs to fucking die in a figurative fire. Not a literal fire, but a figurative and philosophical and argument-based one, definitely.
Moving on, or
Yep.
okay.
Moving on.
In his later career, Adams, also a trained hypnotist, wrote self-help books, including How to Fail at Almost Everything and Still Win Big, Win Bigly, Lose Your Think and Reframe Your Brain.
I did not know he was a hypnotist, but I'm skeptical of hypnotism in general just because it's fucking hypnotism. But that's an interesting set of aptitudes he has there to be a professional hypnotist and also a political satire cartoonist. It's an interesting crossover that I didn't think was a thing.
Everyone needs a hobby.
What's funny is he's probably better known for the comic that was his hobby than he is for being a hypnotist. Which, to be fair, hypnotism is how to phrase it, controversial is a rather controversial area of study by itself. So that's probably just that he's better known for his comics than he is for his hypnotism. Anyway, moving on.
All right. He had been receiving end-of-life care at his home after the prostate cancer, which he first revealed he had in May 2025, spread to his bones. On 1st January this year, he told listeners that the chances of him making a recovery were unlikely. I'll give you any updates if that changes, but it won't. He said, there's no chance that I'll get my feeling back in my legs, and I've got some ongoing heart failure, which is making it difficult to breathe sometimes during the day. However, you should prepare yourself that January will probably be a month of transition, one way or another.
As someone who was born with spastic diaplegic cerebral palsy, I can't imagine what it would be like for an able-bodied person to suddenly be paralyzed in the lower extremities, and I would not wish it upon my worst enemy. So I am very sorry that he had to go through that. Obviously, by the time that happened, he probably had bigger fish to fry, as he himself had alluded to. But it's still, I would rather be born with a disability than have it inflicted upon me later in life, as I have mentioned many times. Because I've had 30 years of practice getting used to this shit. I can't imagine what it would have been like for a 60-plus-year-old man who's been able-bodied all his life to finally have to learn the skills I had to learn at 5 at the age of 65 or whenever else the fuck he got diagnosed. Moving on.
Okay, let me get the next thing open then. So that's the end of the article there. Okay. Okay, so this is from IndieWire.com. Netflix will soon have its own movies, all of Sony's movies, and maybe all of Warner Brothers movies. It's written by Brian Welk, published January 15th, 2026.
We're finally discussing the Netflix Warner Brothers merger that appears to be in the offing.
Subheader is Netflix struck a new pay one deal with Sony Pictures Entertainment that will make Sony's films available on Netflix globally by 2029. That's just a subheader, like I said. Big part of the concern over the likely impending merger between Netflix and Warner Brothers Discovery is that when all is said and done, Netflix will be by far the biggest streamer out there by a huge margin, with more subscribers and more time spent on the platforms than any other streamer, not including YouTube. The latest deal Netflix made today poses to make it even bigger. Netflix and Sony Pictures Entertainment on Thursday announced a new global Pay One licensing deal. All of Sony's feature films will now stream on Netflix globally after their full run in the theaters and PVOD. Video on demand. What is that?
Paid video on demand is what that's short for.
Okay, I knew video on demand, but I didn't know paid. So yeah, I didn't know the P. Like, I only ever heard video on demand. So
yeah, I've mostly seen it as VOD as well, but I have heard PVOD. So it also sometimes is short for pay-per-view and video on demand. Even though for pay-per-view there probably should be an extra P there, but oh well.
All right. Sony's movies already stream on Netflix in the U.S. and a few other territories, but this new expanded deal means all of Sony's new releases, including Sony Pictures classic movies, but not Crunchyroll movies, will be available around the world. And it also gives Netflix access to some other older library and TV titles. Sony won't reach fully global until 2029, though, as it waits for other rights to become available.
It's kind of interesting that prior to like the streaming wars, this was basically the norm for Netflix. Netflix just kind of had everything by default, and even now after the massive streaming wars, it seems like Netflix might end up being the ultimate winner of the streaming wars anyway, which is amusing. Although part of that is more due to Warner Brothers constantly shooting themselves in the foot and then the dick, but Warner Brothers' incompetent loss is Netflix's gain, apparently.
Moving on, or sorry, I just wasn't sure if you
Yeah,
had...
moving forward.
Okay. Titles like Anyone But You, the Venom movies, Uncharted, and It Ends With Us have done quite well on Netflix after big theatrical runs. And Netflix already confirmed that this deal means some of Sony's biggest upcoming movies, including Nintendo's The Legend of Zelda, Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse, and even Sam Mendes' 4 Beatles biopics, will all eventually be available on Netflix.
I forgot that the Legend of Zelda movie was going to be Sony. I don't remember who did the Mario one, but I assumed it was going to be the same company that did the Legend of Zelda one. Although I have heard that Zelda is supposed to be live action, which I think is the right choice for Zelda, because it's much more of a traditional high fantasy. So there's not as much benefit to making it animated like the Mario movie was. And frankly, I would like to see a resurgence of like serious high fantasy movies or just fantasy movies in general. Because like I like Critical Role and Vox Machina as much as the next guy, but I'm really getting sick of the like Guardians of the Galaxy-fication of fantasy. So it would be nice, assuming that the Legend of Zelda movie is a relatively serious high fantasy / adventure movie, which I hope to God. I don't want there to be unnecessary comedy in it. Like the occasional joke is one thing, but again, I am against the Guardians of the Galaxy-fication of fantasy. Fuck you, D&D movie. You should have been a more serious take on high fantasy. I don't fucking care. But yeah, I'm hoping that this bodes well for the return of relatively serious fantasy. And then I would hope eventually, especially in the, absence of the comic book genre, that the urban fantasy noir subgenre starts getting some play and we can actually get a half decent adaptation of Dresden Files and Company instead of the unmitigated disaster that was the 2004 sci-fi show. But that's just my wishful thinking. Today we return serious high fantasy, and then eventually we cross the superhero genre with John Wick, and we get the urban fantasy noir boom. Hopefully. There's so many great series in the like urban fantasy noir subgenre, and I'm sick of not getting good adaptations of it.
Moving on.
Yeah, I know DT, but it's particularly annoying when it comes to things like the D&D movie that could have easily been a more serious movie, but they made it Medieval Guardians of the Galaxy instead. So I'm hoping, like, the only serious high fantasy we've seen in recent years has been stuff like The Wheel of Time, which was a minor disaster, and Rings of Power, which was an unmitigated disaster. So I'm hoping that the Legend of Zelda movie is good, so we can get a semi-return of some serious high fantasy, and then hopefully we can parlay that into some serious urban fantasy, but baby steps.
Moving on.
Yep, moving on.
Okay. To clarify, this pay one window, which generally lasts 18 months, so it doesn't mean that Sony's movies will be on Netflix in perpetuity after that 18 months. Sony currently has a pay 2 deal with Disney because Sony does not have an SVOD streaming service of its own. It can keep doing other licensing deals and creating value for its titles way down the road.
Anything free run related is an anime thing, which I do think that anime adaptation slash video game adaptations is probably the next heir apparent to the comic book genre. At least until someone remembers, oh hey, there's an entire subgenre of novels that everyone loves that we've never done adaptations for hardly. But I do think that anime and or video games are the next like heir apparents to the comic book genre throne of ubiquity. But that's why I don't really count things like free run, because that's Japan kicking the Western media's ass, which
Again,
is based. But I'm hoping that Zelda is a good enough fantasy, like maybe even close to Lord of the Rings level, so that we might see some resurgence of high fantasy, and then maybe that can be parlayed into finally adapting some decent urban fantasy, like Dresden, like Alex Vera's, like Simon Green's Nightside, like Richard Condry's Sandman Slim, and so on. Because this is the thing. This is what annoys me about the absence of those sorts of adaptations. Is it should be the easiest no-brainer in Hollywood history for someone at some company to go, hey, what if we took the superhero genre and crossed it with John Wick? Would that or would that not make all the money? Which is basically what the like urban fantasy pulp noir subgenre would essentially be in like elevator pitch terms. Is what if we took the supernatural and like bigger than life aspects of the superhero genre and crossed it with the like old world shoot 'em up kind of vibe of John Wick. Should be an easy prospect, but for some reason there's only like a handful of pulp urban fantasy movies that I'm aware of, although I am aware of most of them because I went looking for them. But there should be a lot more, especially given the number of franchise, like long-standing book franchises that have yet to be adapted by Hollywood, or have only been adapted in the worst possible way, vis-a-vis the Dresden Files TV show. Moving on.
Now with this deal, why would it want a streamer of its own? It could be leaving some money on the table when you see something like the disastrous Madam Web implode the box office with a recent top 10 on Netflix months after the fact, or in the case of K-pop Demon Hunters, that movie was never released in theaters and was always intended to be a direct to Netflix, and instead is now Netflix's biggest movie of all time. Sony got a sweeter deal with Netflix for the sequel.
Now, mind you, Netflix makes some really stupid creative decisions sometimes, so I'm not sure how well this bodes for the quality of the franchises that they take over. But I am more willing to hear Netflix out than I am to hear Sony out at this point, because Sony seems to want to constantly shoot themselves in the foot. The only major studio that seems to not shoot themselves in the foot constantly is Universal. And even then, I would like to see them have some decent competition, because Lord knows the other major studios aren't really pulling their weight at this point, considering both Disney and to a more severe extent Warner Brothers are circling the fucking drain. Oh, what a difference a decade makes, eh, Disney? Moving on.
I think I crashed one of my fucking knees. Actually, no, I think that was my ankle. Never mind.
Either way, you need to see a chiropractor or something at some point, dude.
Well, I've always had. You can crack bones and not have fucking have fucking problems. Okay, just
I know, but you are also in chronic pain as regards them, and that's the part where I'm like,
look,
maybe
it's not pain. Okay. Anyway, where was I? Terms of the deal weren't disclosed, but IndieWire understands that because this is a global deal with Netflix rather than just for the U.S., the value Sony is getting from the theatrical movies is that pay one window is significantly more than it has in the past. It's a win-win for both. But perhaps what's most exciting and startling about the arrangement is if the Warner Brothers deal goes through, and if Paramount has a whole lot to say about it, Netflix would have access to its own movies, all of Sony's new movies, and all of Warner Brothers movies and shows. It's a behemoth, and Netflix still, of course, licenses films like the Illumination animated movies from NBC Universal and countless others. Most of those aren't available globally the way Sony's movies will be, but a deal like this opens the door to that maybe Netflix could do the same with another film company.
DT, I am aware that eventually all genre supremacy must end, but I'm willing to make the monkey's paw wish under the auspices that we will get roughly 10 years, like we did with superhero movies, of decent to great adaptations. And if those decent to great adaptations can at least cover the major ones, which in my head is Dresden, Nightside, and Sandman Slim, and maybe something like Felix Castor or Alex Vira's as well. I am willing to accept that eventually this too must die, but it annoys me because Hollywood is so hyperfixated on constantly remaking everything, and no, this isn't a plea for new stuff or non-adaptations like most idiots do, but it's a plea for there's a whole shit ton of things you could adapt, Hollywood, and there's an easy elevator pitch for those things being successful. Again, what if the superhero genre meets John Wick? Or what if the anime genre meets John Wick? Is a perfect fucking elevator pitch, and yet for some reason, the only attempt to adapt something like Dresden Files was that god-awful Sci-Fi Channel original series from 2004, when there was no attention paid to accurate adaptation or anything, let alone the lack of special effects budget and shit. So, if, assuming I'm right in that anime and video games will probably share the spotlight for the foreseeable future and be the next thing that replaces the superhero genre, then the thing after video games and anime have had their day in the sun
Okay. Uh, when you have access to that much from so many different sources, it really helps in the war for the attention economy. We wrote not long ago about the Amazon Prime Video adding Peacock as a channel you can subscribe to via its platform, one of the last few holdouts to Prime Video channels, and it makes it such that a savvy viewer can get virtually everything they care to watch from one service rather than clicking through various apps and guessing where to find things. Now Netflix will in theory
Sorry, go ahead.
Now Netflix will in theory be able to offer all of it with just a single subscription.
Prime has been the leading the fucking word vanguard for this. The whole thing they do where you can add like sub channels from other streaming services to your Prime subscription is it's a very, very smart thing for them to do, especially with free apps like Plex and Tubi. So I gotta give at least some props to Prime Video, even though the fact that they spend $1 billion a season on Rings of Power, but Hazbin Hotel season 2 didn't even get a budget increase. That's gonna burn my ass until that discrepancy has been rectified. I'm not saying you have to spend as much as you do on Rings of Power as you do on Hazbin Hotel, but considering that Hazbin Hotel is a major smash hit across the board for Prime, and Rings of Power has been derisive from minute one. I'm just saying, if I were in charge of the evil corporate machination machine, I know where I would be putting my money. The thing people actually like and is good for merchandising versus the thing that make people cringe on sight and does nothing but poison the merchandising. Moving on.
Right. Okay. Well, we now getting into the trailers, which I'm really surprised about. Yeah. Both are my suggestions, simply because one came out relatively recently, and oh god, I'm sorry, it's cold in my room right now.
Yeah, us too, because my mom was remodeling and had to turn the furnace off because she was moving the washer and dryer around and didn't want the furnace to get in the way of everything.
Um, so yeah, this is. I think we're just gonna be covering these as they're coming out because, well, it's some that we can talk
Yeah, it
about.
seems like Disney is content to release like one of these a week for whatever reason. I don't think it's going to help Avengers Doomsday's chances, to be honest with you. I think it's going to end up annoying and desensitizing people, frankly, to Doomsday, but they can try. Which character or characters gets the spotlight in this one?
You're only gonna have to watch the see, man. I'm not gonna tell you.
Mm.
Spoilers.
Because I know we've gotten Cap, we've gotten Thor, we've gotten the X-Men. I'm trying to think of who else they could bring in, but okay. But I don't know.
Yep. Or shawarma, actually.
Yeah, okay, shawarma. Yeah,
That's a deep cut for a lot of people, I'm sure.
considering they haven't really mentioned it since like Avengers 1,
Yep.
they should bring that back at some point.
I'm more surprised. No, never mind. Anyway, yeah. Shawarma.
Shawarma.
I've lost everyone that matters to me. The king has his duties.
Okay, so this is where it's going to. They're gonna have to thread this. They're gonna have to thread this needle very, very carefully, because here they can't really avoid referencing shit from phases 4 and 5, because Chadwick Boseman had a lot of business on the other side of the veil to attend to. So they're gonna have to be very careful here.
Mhm.
It seemed, at least in the previous ones, that they were trying their damnedest to not mention anything from phases 4 and 5.
I mean, they.
Granted, go ahead.
Sorry. I was gonna say they did kind of bring up Love and Thunder with and Thor's thing with love. So
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure they're going to be soft rebooting the fuck out of that, especially totally.
yeah, fair. I mean, to be fair, yeah.
Which, to be fair, is the right move, because Love and Thunder, while I still think it's the second best of the Thor movies, it's not great. Would still watch it over either of the first two, but it's not good. It's kind of like where I'm at with Superman 25. It's a massive improvement on Man of Steel. Doesn't make it good, but it's a massive improvement on Man of Steel. Anyway, shawarma.
Yeah.
To prepare our people for the afterlife. I have mine.
Okay, sorry. I just forgot to bring this up because I was just thinking of the scene.
Mm.
It looks like Talokan was risen from the sea.
It does appear that way, yes.
I don't know if they did that with Atlantis in the comics because I don't really looked into Namor's lore.
They've done it and undone it a couple of different times. Most of the time, it's in the sea. There have been individual storylines where it gets raised, but it usually reverts to status quo as soon as those storylines end, or when the timeline gets rebooted again, because both the big two at this point don't know how to exist for more than 5 years without doing a mass continuity reboot at this point, which is a shame. And I suppose this is basically that, but for the cinematic universe. So I guess it's kind of inevitable that they'll hit the reboot button. Which, again, to be fair, like a solid third of everything in Phase 4 and 5 were absolute dog shit, and another like fourth of the content has been stuff people can take or leave, and only like a third has been genuinely arguably good. So it's probably smart of them to hit the reboot button and pretend that the all new, all different Marvel era just did not happen, or at least result in most of those characters dying or getting written off at the end of Secret Wars. But still, they're going to have to be very careful about how they do this. Shawarma.
Yep. Okay.
King M'Baku of Wakanda.
Ben, Yancey Street, between Broome and Grand.
A lot of this is riding on how they use and incorporate the Fantastic Four. Because as much as I think that Fantastic Four was an improvement on especially the post-Phase 3 normal for the MCU, it didn't financially do well. So they're going to have to do a lot of selling in this movie to make that work, considering how central Doom and, by extension, of course, the Four are to at least Doomsday and, in all probability, both Doomsday and Secret Wars, considering that in at least one version of Secret Wars, because there are multiple Secret Wars, Doom is central to said plot, and it seems like they are pulling from that version, considering that the chapter before Secret Wars is Doomsday now instead of Kang Dynasty. But we shall see. Pharma.
That's it, really.
It's interesting that they tied Shuri and the Black Panther side of things with the Fantastic Four. I guess that does make sense because I can see Wakandan technology giving Reed and company a lot more toys to play with, and I can see
that
Shuri
and the Fantastic
playing off with Reed really well.
That and Fantastic Four are very integral to Black Panther in the sense that Black Panther was introduced in the Fantastic Four.
This is also true, although I'm not certain to what degree I'm convinced that was a deliberate evocation of that.
Also, I remember someone posing a theory that because they had Namor or Namor, whatever you want to call him, in here, but didn't have like a narration or that possibly he could be working with Doom for some.
It would make sense for Namor's
an anti-hero. Like he's
Namor has always been the upper crust asshole version of Aquaman is the best way of putting it. He is very New England old money in terms of his quasi-aristocratic pompousness, and he's always been an asshole. So it would make logical sense if he and Doom team up. Would also be willing to throw Ian McKellen's Magneto into that triumvirate as well, or that. Well, not Legion of Doom because that's DC, not Marvel. But I can see Doom recruiting some of the bigger players in the villain game to make his schemes work. And of course, Doom is going to betray everybody and make sure he is the last man standing at the top of the totem pole when all is said and done, because it's fucking Doom. But yeah.
It makes me think, what if he got Zemo? I know Zemo's story's kind of been done, is done, kind of finished overall.
I don't think Zemo has enough power to make recruiting him attractive to Doom.
Well, okay. I mean, to me, look at his feats within the MCU, right? Guy was a former Black Ops, Death Squad leader in Sokovia. Baron as well, though guy was rich.
Yeah, and this
hold on.
Sorry, go ahead.
Single-handedly thought out, planned, executed a way to destroy the Avengers from within.
Although I'm gonna have to side with the side of the argument that says that would have happened anyway because of the Sokovia Accords, and Civil War really didn't need a central villain. But I see what you're.
I also want to point this out. He did also help bringing in a way, bringing in and destroy the manufacturing of super soldier serums regarding to the Flag Smashers. So it's also another feat of his.
Which I'm hoping to God they ignore Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but that's neither here nor there. The thing I was going to then bring up, once you were finished, which are you good?
Yeah, that's pretty much all he's done. So yeah.
Okay, so this raises the 10 megaton elephant in the room question of, is this version of Doom going to be an alternate version of Tony Stark? Because if this version of Doom is an alternate version of Tony Stark, then not only do I think that he probably killed Zemo in his home dimension, but he probably killed Zemo here as well. Just because if this is a version of Tony that has like leaned into his more self-destructive tendencies to the level of a Doctor Doom, yeah, no, that version of Tony is not leaving Zemo alive in his home dimension or any other dimension he finds Zemo in, frankly. You know what I mean?
I do.
Yeah, because if this is and I think that is probably how they're going to play it. They're going to play it that this version of Doom is a version of Tony that has doubled down on everything that our mainline Tony outgrew or character developed out of.
I've also
heard himself from.
I've heard a few theories depending on what version of Tony this is. Obviously, it is another version of Tony from like the multiverse, but someone proposed a theory that he's from one of the what was the number Strange gave in Infinity War of the futures he looked into?
14,605,000 is the number of futures that Strange saw, of which there was only one that they were successful in.
It'd be one from the ones that failed.
So it'd be one of the 14,604,000 remaining ones that didn't pan out.
Yeah. Why Zemo specifically? He's a cat villain. Well, to be fair, how Marvel with their villains kind of works is that they kind of, while they do have mainstays in terms of enemies, they actually do kind of circle around. That's actually a lot of supervillains and a lot of
the reason why is because in the cinematic universe, DT, they made him the central villain of Captain America: Civil War and made him at least instrumental to breaking up the Avengers in time for Thanos to make his play. I once again want it known for the record that I am on team Civil War didn't need a villain. The philosophical and political conflict between Tony and Cap and Steve's desire to defend Bucky should have been enough plot by itself to work, but given that is what happened canonically in the MCU, he is a bigger deal to the MCU's timeline than he is to comic Marvel timeline.
I mean, he was Zemo is pretty actually like, well, specifically Helmet Zemo, because there are two Zemos. Zemo's father, Heinrich Zemo, who was a Hydra scientist during World War II, had a distinct hatred for Captain America for many reasons. But Helmet Zemo, who was born after, it's a whole thing. But he had made marks and was somewhat important in Doom. Tony would.
I'd put him on like C tier in terms of like villain import in the comics.
I'd argue B tier given his whole plan with the Thunderbolts, and it almost came pretty damn close to working.
I think he's B tier in the MCU. I think he's C tier in the comics.
How many Zemo comics have you read?
Not that many, but
yeah, so I feel like
that's part of the reason why he's in C tier in the comics, because he doesn't have a major event like Civil War in the comics. That's why he's C rather than B, whereas in the
that's not exactly true, but whatever. I'm not gonna go into that with you right now. So Doom Tony will go after him over the events. So it really depends. Like again, there are a lot of we haven't seen anything in terms of what makes this Tony, who is Doom, like make him different than the Tony we know from the MCU. So it's really kind of a speculation at this point, which I'm not a big fan of doing right now because it gets our hopes up because we usually come up with something better than what they actually have.
There's a part of me that really would prefer, especially given the kind of bait and switch thing they're doing with these trailers and focusing on mostly what happened in phases 1 to 3 and ignoring most of the rest of it. I would really love if this was just a version of Victor Von Doom and it just happened to be played by Robert Downey Jr., but Robert Downey Jr. plays him like Doom is supposed to be played. Because we know he can do foreign accents. Like he did a British accent for both Sherlock Holmes and I think also the Charlie Chaplin movie he was in. So there's that. Like we know he can do accents. There's a part of me that would enjoy since they're really trying to pare down the complications and kind of bait and switch back to defaulting phase 3 anyway. Really would like them to ignore the multiverse shit and just have it be a version of Doctor Doom who happens to look a lot like Tony Stark. But I don't think I'm going to get that lucky. I think they're going to go the stupidest possible route, and everyone is going to be disappointed. But I as per usual, I make these dire predictions in the hopes of the desperate hopes of being wrong. So please, I beg of you, Marvel, prove me wrong. Do the not stupid thing, please. But I'm not getting my hopes up. There's one too many She-Hulk sized problems with the post Phase 3 MCU for me to get my hopes up.
All right. Last one. Something we covered a while back and has seen this trailer. I'm probably going to review it, actually. It's probably
Yeah, most likely.
Yeah. Ironically, it is something that it's in the realm of something Dalton loves a lot.
Mm-hmm.
This is a official trailer for The Bride, which we covered, I believe, in October.
I believe we did, yes.
Yeah, it was with our kind of our Frankenstein theme week we were doing there.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of happened to correlate there. But it
yes,
is
my Frankenstein simpery is well established by this point, to the point that Brainstormer got me a copy of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein for Christmas, which, to be fair, I do not own, other than this new version I got for Christmas, a copy of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. So it was a good pull on Brainstormer's part, especially because it was the one illustrated by Bernie Wrightson and had a lot of like bonus essays and editorial material and stuff. So that, yeah, but my Frankenstein simpery has been well established by this point. And Adam did nothing wrong, TM, etc.
All right. So yeah, this is kind of a I want to say 1920s, maybe 19. It's basically like a noir film with Frankenstein's monster who gets a bride, and they kind of go on a Bonnie and Clyde kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Who is behind this again?
Well, Christian Bale is playing Frankie. Maggie Gyllenhaal.
I meant on the directorial creative side, but okay.
Well, the thing is, I think. Hold on. I am fairly. Hold on. Yeah, It's Maggie Gyllenhaal.
So she's both starring in it and
Oh no,
working
I'm
things
sorry. No, it's Jesse.
section
It's
is.
sorry, I'm wrong. Jesse Buckley is the Bride of Frankenstein.
Hmm.
Jake Gyllenhaal is in this movie.
Hmm.
I'm just looking at the Google thing. It doesn't have who he's playing, but 1930 Chicago. Okay.
Okay, so we're getting a Frankenstein flavored 1930s detective noir set in Chicago. They're really they really peaked at my Christmas list, didn't they?
Um, shall we? Or I'm trying to think of like. Is there anything food related to Frankenstein or?
Food related girl, the closest like pause phrase or whatever I could think of with regards to it was "It's alive," which doesn't actually occur in the actual novel. It occurs in the 1940s movie, but that's the best I can do, I think.
Let's go with Frank and Nana. That's
Which I'm just trying to I'm trying to envision like a stitched together zombified banana. That's it. Okay, but Frank and Nana.
Can anybody help me? Please. I didn't want this. I didn't want any of this. Please.
I really hope they're not going to try to frame Adam as an abusive husband or something along those lines.
well, they bring her back. Frankenstein's monster with the help of another doctor, not Dr. Frankenstein, someone else entirely, because well, this is in the 30s. He might, I don't know. The synopsis was that they bring back a recently murdered woman. It sparks romance. So
Okay, so hopefully they're not pulling the toxic masculinity card with Adam. Hopefully.
I mean, to be fair, there was with the novel at least there was the there's a question of that he seeks her soul creation. It's similar with Adam's creation. It's like they never put in the consideration of the character that is being created with that.
I mean, true, and there's also the kind of ew implication of when Adam was created / revived, he had the mind of a child. So, grooming? Question mark.
Yeah. I've always thought of like if I were to do like some form of adaptation with Frankenstein, I would have not to give like an Adam and Eve parallel, but just some, or well, maybe if we're being more accurate to biblical lore, Adam and Lilith.
Yeah, depending. But go ahead.
That Dr. Frankenstein or whoever you want to place in this, maybe it might have been an older version or whatever, creates both Frankenstein's monster and I don't want to call it the bride here because it wouldn't make sense specifically, but man and female creations at the same time. So they're both.
Which I mean would allow the movie or show or whatever to go into even more. He's trying desperately to be God and improve on God's design parallels.
Yeah. That's kind of where I was going with. But I was also thinking like it does get rid of that like implication of like you said earlier of like that she would have technically had the mind of a child when she first came to being.
the reanimated elephant in the room.
Yeah. Funny enough, they actually did bring that. They sort of briefly brought that up in Bride's episode in Creature Commandos.
You're right. I think they did. Yeah. Although there are so many problems with that. I mean, obviously, her being independent of Adam is important to her character in that show and everything. But like,
Well,
I-
actually, it's Eric.
well, but anyway,
To be fair, they
uh,
made him such a piece of shit.
they did, and I'm sick of any version of Frankenstein's son getting the shit end of the stick. I'm so
look,
sick of him getting the shit end of the stick.
Novel wise, it sort of makes sense given that he was.
Yeah, when you're adapting the novel, you have to adapt the novel. But when all you're doing is adapting the concept, can you not give the man a win every once in a while?
Yeah. So yeah, like that would be like one of my major ideas. Like if I were doing a Frankenstein adaptation, obviously I would lean more into the novel itself.
Yeah, and
But I do think,
the playing / improving on God's design motif.
yeah. So I think him creating both male and female at the same time would make sense and give him more of a god complex than he already did.
I mean, I could even see him. I could even see him quoting the male and female he created them line as he's doing it.
Anyway,
Because in the novel, Victor is a very like pompous and overly theatrical motherfucker, which, to be fair, is part of the tone of the novel in general. But yeah, Victor's a little prima donna bitch boy in every version that bothers to adapt the novel.
all right,
Frank and Nana.
Franken.
Help. Help. What happened?
You had an accident.
An accident.
Okay, and I'm assuming that because they made her from one corpse, she has most of what would be her original memories / personality.
I would say
implication?
personality. It does look it does seem like it's coming across like her memories are fragmented.
Okay, but she still has access to them,
Possibly.
which is unlike all the versions of Adam that I've been aware. I know we've discussed the idea of him maybe having residual memories from the people whose parts he's constituent of before, but in most versions of the story and adaptations of the character, he's basically a blank slate for the most part. Of the only thing that carries over is his aptitudes.
You know, I also just thought of something with the construction. Like, if we were thinking, sorry, it's just like I was going back to the idea. When Victor is constructing I guess in a way, let's just call her the female for this.
Mm-hmm.
She would have to have found, for one thing, digging up a bunch of women corpses and stuff, but going with the idea that finding longer limbs and stuff, and I think that would seem more difficult for the female at the time, for females, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I was thinking like.
Well, I mean, it's difficult for men too, to the point that Victor in the novel has to stitch together multiple arms from multiple arm joints and elbows and shit from different people to create that.
I know. I'm just saying. Oh, hold on. It's only related via pun and not something you consume normally, but maybe frank incense. Like, what the three wise men? Oh, we are fucking
Yes.
stupid.
That is hilarious, GT, and well done to you. So
God, how do
so frankincense it shall be from this point forward. Whenever we have to deal with Frankenstein related shit.
we are fucking stupid.
Yeah, no, that I could see the point of that. I should have thought of that. I did not think of that. I should be ashamed.
Yeah, but so possibly the bride still would be shorter than Adam,
Yes.
but probably taller than average human, I think.
Yeah, it'd be proportional to how much taller and bigger that Adam is to the normal person. Which also this is another thing. He intended Adam to be a perfect being or a perfect man, and he largely succeeded, but was too stupid to realize it. So would Victor be selecting body parts for different things when he's making a woman? Because physical strength and like imposingness and shit are not stereotypical feminine virtues. If he designed Adam to be the perfect man, would it not follow that he would try to create his wife as a perfect woman and would be selecting for different things?
Yeah, that's a good question. I do think
Um,
I don't know. Like we're trying to figure out the mind of a man that is obsessed with besting God and perfecting his designs.
Yeah,
So
so
that's somewhat of a complicated factor because what if his idea is to make both, I guess, in a way, equals more so than man and woman were when God created them? Which was the whole thing with which was kind of a whole similar thing with Adam and Lilith, again, depending on the lore.
yeah, and then you get Eve created from the rib and is by necessity subservient to him and blah blah blah. Yeah, so it probably wouldn't make as much sense for him to be aware of Lilith as a thing at the time. Like there were translations of the Apocrypha and so on that focus on Lilith, but most of those would probably be Jewish, and I doubt that Victor would go hunting for Jewish lore. Although to be fair, in the original folk story that Frankenstein is based on, it is an alchemist adapting homunculus magic essentially.
Well, there's also the golem, which I am aware is made of clay, but there is kind of a there is some similarities to Frankenstein.
It definitely wouldn't be out of the question for an alchemist creating a homunculus to also know shit about Kybala, and if he knows about Kybala, then he would almost certainly know about the alphabet of Ben Zero, which is one of the main sources for the expanded lore of Lilith. So there is that.
I do think yes. Again, it's super.
I think for the sake of an interesting story, making that leap is one, it's not out of the question, and two, I think it makes for a more interesting story. Especially if he's critiquing God's handiwork as a craftsman, I could see him getting a lot of mileage out of the fact that God had to have a rough draft in the case of woman with Lilith v. Eve. So I definitely think, especially for his character, him knowing about the expanded lore of Lilith and then being able to cite the fact that even God was due a rough draft every now and then, would add very neatly to the whole wanting to play on and prove that he could improve on God's designs and shit.
But would be interesting that they're both learning at the same time. I think.
Especially given the cruelty that Victor inflicts on Adam, which would he be equally willing to inflict on Lilith for the sake of the argument?
That's a good question. I mean, if he's like, they're both still his creations, and he's disappointed that they're not these perfect beings in the sense that they're not mentally acute the moment they open their eyes.
Because even a perfect being has to be raised, Victor. God,
Okay,
my
Go ahead.
hatred of Victor as a father figure is well established at this point. But god damn it, I hate you, Victor, so much.
I want to say just for the sake of it being it would make,
Indiscriminate.
yeah.
It's just that's gonna really, like, it's not right that people have more empathy for female characters than they do for male characters, but it is a thing that people have. So that's gonna make Victor look like an even bigger asshole than
Okay,
he
Drandrel,
is.
okay, so Drandrel brings up something interesting. The way I see it for her, for if she would be strong and stuff, a goddess isn't necessarily a bodybuilder, but still would be strong for their frame and tall, etc. Yeah, fair enough. Fair. That's fair. That's fair.
Again, like my only question with regards to that is, I would think that he would want almost like a Helen of Troy sort of vibe to be his model for, again, Lilith, for sake of argument.
I still do think she would be tall, just given that
Yeah, she'd definitely be very like Amazonian in the same way that he is like a giant.
Well, again, like if to quote Victor Frankenstein from Frankenstein 2025, longer limbs would make the work easier in their creation. So,
and I just think in the same way that being statuesque as a woman is different from being statuesque as a man.
I agree. I'm just like I think that this whole conversation stemmed from a miscommunication then. So I was never saying she was going to have the same build as Adam. That was never my intent. I was just like thinking she would be taller than most people, just simply because that's how she would be constructed, like Adam.
Yeah, it has to be proportional, and he wants them to be equals. Therefore, I just, especially given his rather like hyper traditionalist notions of masculinity and femininity, he's going to be selecting her to have the curves and the breeding hips and so on, because fucking 19th century twat.
The way you said that, man, I just ugh.
I'm not saying I would say that. I'm saying
No, I know. I'm just saying, like, it's that
yeah, a mad scientist in the fucking 19th century, or even if we take more inspiration from the story that Mary Shelley based Frankenstein on and have it be a couple centuries earlier, that's still going to lead into the like masculine energy versus feminine energy thing if he's an alchemist and a Kabbalist and whatnot. Which raises questions about whether either Adam or Lilith would be fertile, which is another question. Like, could they breed?
Anyway, back to this. Frankincense?
Frankincense, indeed.
We dug you up, and we brought you back to life.
Get on stage, and I call her by her first name.
What do you want with a dead girl?
I'm the same, born from the dead. I am a Master.
I mean, it is. I assume the movies are going to go into this, but it is different because they appear to have only used one corpse for her, and therefore she still would have had like an innate personality, whereas Victor is, or Adam is Victor's attempt to optimize.
Well, I'm not even sure about his. I mean, it looks like he is stapled together. Actually, like it looks like their scar design. To be fair, it looks like he's based more off of Boris Karloff's Frankenstein,
Yeah,
which is fine. I have nothing against that.
yeah. I mean, I always prefer if they take from the novel rather than the 40s version, but it's a thing for a reason. It's iconic and blah blah blah.
I'm gonna be honest. I honestly feel like there's a good chance you could do a mix of both.
You could, and I think Guillermo del Toro definitely tried, although he veered much closer to the novel because I think a large part of Guillermo's logic there was he was annoyed, much like myself, that the concept of the character gets more play than the novel, and so he wanted to veer as close to the novel as he could get.
That's fair. Okay, General.
But even he still made the lightning reference, which, as we've mentioned a couple of times now, it was always kept very ambiguous in the book as to what Victor's methods were.
Yeah. General, based on how you guys are talking, I'm imagining more something like look into Greek statues and less stylized goddess depictions and such. Yeah, that'd be pretty fair design if you were going for a Bride of Frankenstein, I would say.
Yep.
All right. I do find it interesting that he has more of a flesh. Well, to be fair, it doesn't look like he has discolored skin though. Like no like, patches of skin.
Also, everybody say hello to Zephyr. I don't know what it is, but every time I stream, he wants to be on camera for at least a second.
Well, use your cat. Vanity seems to run through your veins. So you probably emulate that.
This is also true.
Yeah. But also, I'm wondering if this is the original Adam Frankenstein from 1800s, early 1800s, or
if the doctor who made the bride basically improved on Victor's lab notes.
Yeah, because like my thing is like listen to how he's speaking, listen to how he's acting, like look at how he's acting and stuff. It seems far more modern.
It could be that
time period.
It could be more, like we said, it could be more taken from the Boris Karloff version than the novel, or it could just be that he's tried to keep up with the modern dialect as he's aged. Who knows?
I'm just saying, like I feel like this Frankenstein's monster, whatever you want to call him. Or Frankie, as he's called, I guess, by the bride.
This raises an interesting question. One, is the novel existent in this universe? And two, if the novel is existent in this universe and or the various media adaptations, would she know him from her memories as a human?
Yeah,
assuming she still has them.
No idea. Also, Christian Bale seems to be having fun in this role.
He does, and he's a good actor. I will say, I think Jacob Elordi nailed the novel version about as well as anyone can.
Yeah,
because I've made it very clear how much I approve of Del Toro's version.
Right. I will also make this like whenever they decide to make another one. I put up Henry Cavill to play Adam.
Yes.
Because I genuinely think he could play a really good version of that.
There are so many roles he can and would ace if they gave half a fuck, but unfortunately they don't like that Henry gives a damn about what the fans think.
Well, okay, I'm gonna be honest. 2010s, if they were doing a Frankenstein movie, I think I mentioned this back in October. My ideal casting for both Adam Frankenstein and the Bride of Frankenstein is Henry Cavill and Gwendolyn Christie.
Yep, they both can work.
For those who don't know who Gwendolyn Christie is, she was Captain Phasma in Star Wars, the sequel trilogy. She was Brienne of Tarth in Game of Thrones, and she was Lucifer in The Sandman. I realize two of those are not great, even though I think she was like one of the better parts of that.
She's also the headmistress at turned spirit guide in Wednesday. Netflix's Wednesday. Which I do like that Netflix tends to reuse actors. Kind of like the same way they reuse creative, like 9 times out of 10 when Mike Flanagan does a new thing, it's probably going to come out on Netflix. Same thing with Del Toro. Ever since the Troll Hunters animated series, Del Toro seems to get along really, really well with Netflix. Although Netflix needs to get better at consistently releasing their shit on physical media, because like the Netflix Castlevania anime got a physical release. I own them, but I was looking this up earlier because I was looking for more like urban fantasy noir type shit. Right, the Will Smith movie has not gotten a physical release yet, and it annoys me.
Anyway, frankincense.
Yeah, so am I.
This world is a black hole.
The corrupt are going to see life is here and it's coming to you from the monsters.
It's just like a fever dream in like the best way possible.
Yeah, you know what this reminds me a lot of? Nicolas Cage Renfield.
I've not seen that.
Dude, you gotta see it. It's
well, okay.
like,
I've seen clips of it. I've just never sat down and actually watched the whole thing.
I think you would really like it. Granted, they don't focus as much on Nicolas Cage's Dracula and Nicholas Holt's Renfield as I would prefer they did, because they added a relationship between Renfield and a female cop that's come love interest. But it's still about as fun as the trailers made it look. And if Nicolas Cage's Dracula doesn't do something for you, then I question anyone's taste in movies if they aren't at least somewhat interested in the unique possibilities of Nicolas Cage playing Dracula, like a really over the top horror comedy, like Hammer horror version of Dracula.
I did see the scene where he was basically being a narcissistic, overbearing, controlling jackass to Renfield.
Which, I mean, to be fair, he's motherfucking Dracula, albeit a very comedic version because Nicolas Cage. And I do think Nicolas Cage brought a lot of his usual character actor charm to that version of Dracula. To be fair, like 90% of why that movie existed because Nicolas Cage has always wanted to play a version of Dracula, which
I didn't think. Yeah,
say I blame him. Frankincense.
Yes!
Everybody dance! Everybody sing! Everybody move!
Please don't hurt me, please. I'm sorry. What are you sorry for? Did you do something wrong? Something you thought you might get away with?
Okay, again, this is giving me like B horror comedy vibes, like Nicolas Cage's Renfield.
It's
So-
like, I want to say it's like if Steven Summers, guy who did The Mummy and Van Helsing,
Mhm.
Was allowed to do a Frankenstein movie in the style of The Great Gatsby.
You know, I can kind of see that.
I mean, again, it's set
Another
in the 1930s, you know, so it's like,
another parallel I'm going to draw is Tim Burton's Dark Shadows,
yeah, I can see.
or at least the good aspects of Tim Burton's Dark Shadows, because man, that was another one of those times where the idea of Tim Burton doing Dark Shadows is so much better than what the movie we actually got. I think that if he switched the tones of his Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter movie, which he made at the same time as Dark Shadows, with his version of Dark Shadows, both of those movies would be better off for it. If Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter leaned into the horror comedy more, and Dark Shadows took itself a little bit more seriously, a la the various soap operas, I think it could have worked better for both movies. Anyway, frankincense.
Yep. Let me get to the tab.
Stop right there!
Screaming my name. The dead have got something to say.
That's actually a pretty cool line. I'm not gonna fucking lie.
Yeah, no. Somebody who is trying is working on this script, which is good.
Also, this music too in this trailer is like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm feeling it.
Yep. No, it works. It works.
Tell me if I'm wrong too. Do you get kind of a little bit of a Joker 2019 feel from this as well?
Like, not for nothing, but this is basically what Folie à Deux should have been between him and Harley. Should have been them, like Thelma and Louise / Bunny and Clyding. And the vat of acid could have been the equivalent of the Thelma and Louise Canyon. I have said that since Folie à Deux came out, because there's so much actual potential for that movie that
I think the only
none of got adapted. But yeah.
I think the only negative of this movie I could say right now is that it's coming out in March.
Hollywood, level with me. Why on earth can you not learn how to schedule things for their appropriate fucking seasons?
I mean, to be
Like-
fair, I'm kind of glad it's coming out soon because, to be honest, it's going to be. I've looked at the movies that are coming out, and this is probably the movie I'm going to see. The first movie I'm going to see this year.
But like, okay, two options, perfectly valid options, presented themselves for you, Hollywood. One would be to wait until October. The other one, however, and this would have resulted in it coming out even sooner, is release it on Valentine's Day as a date movie. Why the fuck? Why must I do your job better than you do, Hollywood? Why?
I mean, I'd feel pretty awkward going to that though, because it'd be me and my uncle and I going.
Well, yes, but tell me when you eventually have a significant other, you wouldn't see something like this coming out Valentine's Day weekend and immediately go date night movie.
Well, not maybe. Okay, I'm gonna be honest. Not Valentine's Day weekend because it'd probably be full and compact and stuff. And it's just like usually I like to go to like a week after a movie just so make
Right,
sure
but
that.
okay, but you get what I'm saying though.
Also,
Especially for someone like you and any woman who would have you that would actually deserve you. This would literally be your date night movie.
Oh, we'd probably do like if this was a good enough movie. Honestly, we do ever couples costumes for Halloween parties. It probably would be like something like this. Yeah.
You're gonna do a Herman and Lily couples costume one year, aren't you?
Probably. And Gord. Well, I'm actually Hispanic, so I could do Gomez and Morticia as well. That'd probably be the first one, honestly.
Yeah, that's why I specified Herman and Lily, because I know you lean more in a Munsters direction and I lean more in an Adams direction.
Well, no, okay, yes, I do, but I'm also I understand. I see the. We've both agreed that Gomez.
I'm slowly red pilling you on the Adams, aren't I? Slowly.
No, I was always a fan of the Addams Family. It's just I bonded more with the Munsters.
Mm-hmm. We've had variations on this conversation for years. I do think though that I had a similar impact on you vis-a-vis the Addams as you did on me vis-a-vis Superman.
Yeah.
I think you appreciate them on a deeper level now than you did before we met. Because
I'll concede that. Yeah, I liked them before, but I think I have a greater understanding of them now than I did. So, anyway,
frankincense.
Also, all the skits and fan art I've seen of them lately has also warned me to Gomez and Morticia.
I just now realized another potential option we could have done that would have doubled as a Rocky Horror reference. Frankenfurter.
Yeah, as soon as you said Rocky Horror Picture Show, I thought that was a good movie. Did you ever see the remake of that? Like for the Fox live play on TV?
Oh, that was just a recording of the original stage show, I think.
Either way, it was good. I thought it was good when I saw it.
Yeah, Rocky Horror is awesome. It's right up there with Little Shop of Horrors, which reminds me, I've started going through my lengthy Amazon Save for Later cart and dissecting them into different lists. I need to add Little Shop of Horrors and Rocky Horror to my movie and TV show list on Amazon.
I've seen Rocky Horror Picture Show. I don't think I've ever seen Little Shop. Well, no, okay. I think I saw it when I was really young, but I can't remember really any of it.
If you like Rocky Horror, you will almost certainly like Little Shop of Horrors. Because they are probably one of the most quintessential horror comedy double features out there.
Anyway, shall we?
Frankincense.
Frankfurter.
So next time we do something Frankenstein related, we will have to change it to Frankenfurter because I can't believe kudos to Dragon Turtle for thinking of frankincense because that also should have been easier than it was. But I can't believe it took us as long as it did to make a reference to Frankenfurter with Rocky Horror. God damn it. Which by the way, this does kind of I mean to a lesser degree, but it does fit the kind of Rocky Horror mold a little bit.
Yeah. All right. Frankincense.
Frankincense.
And I'm saying it.
The Bride of Frankenstein.
No, just the bride.
I do like that
That's
they're not. I do like that they're not turning Frankenstein's creature into the villain here, because in a 10 years ago, during like the height of social justice, that's what they would have done. They would have turned it into a feminist empowerment fantasy. In fact, didn't they do a Frankenstein adjacent thing like that a couple of years ago?
all I remember. Sorry, hold on, give me a second. The one I remember was that it was a guy who stitched together a bunch of women into like a Frankenstein monster, and I think it had like the three women it was made out of. They were all kind of in conjunction controlling it,
Mm.
and so they had to be very like. All I remember is like a scene where they were like arguing like mentally, right? Of getting the body up and stuff. It's kind of comedic, but
Kind of like Piccolo, Nail, and Kami in DBZ Abridged.
Yes, but they all were fighting for control of the body.
The one I was thinking of was called Lisa Frankenstein, I think.
I don't know if that was a feminist empowerment movie. So I know what you're talking about.
I remember it being bad. I just don't remember if social justice had anything to do with why it was bad in that particular case.
I think I saw trailers for it, but I never got. I'm gonna be honest. It did not interest me.
No, it was bad. Everyone who saw it that I actually respect the opinion of said it was bad. So I'm sure it was bad. I just don't know if it was pulling the Me Too era feminist empowerment angle. Anyway, outro because I have to use the restroom relatively soon.
Yeah. So with that, folks, on that awkward note, Dalton left us. With that, I want to say goodbye, adios, aloha, and vidise, sayonara, peace, cheers, and
Shalom and fuck off so I can go to the bathroom. Bye.